Yeah, it just depends on what your goal is. Like, if you're planning on getting like a 201, then you don't have to start now, because at the end of the day, the only difference is like like a couple buys here and there, which once you actually get like comfortable enough the game where those small things are only just like small adjustments and not things I just have to like learn from scratch. Um, and yeah, but if you're thinking beyond that, it's like, oh, you know, I want to get like a... I want to go beyond like glitchless. I want to, you know, get good at round 2 or something. Then it doesn't really matter as much whether you run early surge or not, right? Because at the end of the day, what matters is your consistency and your execution, and doing late surge runs for longer so you can get better at the later segments of the game is probably going to be more to your benefit, right? 'Cause it's one thing to like, I want to have a good PB and I want to be good at the game. Like, those aren't necessarily like... There's a Venn diagram there that's not necessarily like a, you know, a completely overlapping circle. Like, if your goal is to push the limits of the game, one, I think you should be thinking beyond glitchless. But also, I think that you should do both routes. Not like at the same time, but I think you should do like one stream a week, or once every 5 streams, or once however many streams you just do early surge runs. And I know, like, for example, Blue Magma will used to sometimes do like the Rock Tomb route in Sapphire and call it like Whiskey Wednesday or something, you know. But you can do like a similar thing where just kind of like having like a fresh change of pace. You can once a week just do early surge runs, or just do like a no reset of like the early surge route. Like, once you get past surge, like the route's basically the same, but you can't do like 42 Koga. You can't do 42 Koga. You need a higher speed outspeed plane. There are things to consider, but I think that doing it every once in a while still doing late surge, YOLO Ball Fridays. Dude, TTS, it's called Fuck It Friday. Although that's probably the best branding if you want to do it on Friday. Early surge Sundays. The first word's gotta start with an A though, so it can be ass. Because early surge is in fact ass. But to kind of like close my point, I think it's still good to do late surge, especially if you haven't done round 2 runs yet, because what round 2 gives you an opportunity yeah, accelerated surge. You die faster. Because you're not doing round 2 yet, round 2, what it does is like similar to the early surge route, is that it basically allows you to get runs past the early game. Like, one, you can grind the early game, but also you can it gives you enough practice where I'm not just getting walled by surge. There's enough, you know, like counters and catch rate garbage to deal with. But it basically gives you enough runs past like rival rock tunnel, so you can actually practice like your execution in real time. And I think that's what late surge provides a really good opportunity for you to do. And I think as you're obviously improving in your skill level, I think it just depends on what your goal. If you're like, okay, I want to get a 200 flat, I want to get a 200 in glitchless, and that'll be the end of it, and then I'll move on to another game. Then you can probably take the jump into early surge once you're earlier. But if you're thinking like Fire Red Leaf Green as a project long term, like I want to be able to like, I want world record for example, like, or like top 3 in all 3 categories, right? Then you have to think a little bit. You have to kind of like think a little bit more. Where it's like, okay, I don't really need to do early surge because 2 of the 3 categories don't even do early surge in their main route. So yeah, it's like, if you're like, okay, I want to expand into like round 2, for example, then late surge, like the time investment into late surge will probably just give you more benefit. And every once in a while, if you're like, I want to play risky, I want to test my limits, then it's like, okay, then you can do early surge runs. But the thing, for example, when I was like figuring out how I wanted to scale my practice in Emerald, I front loaded a lot of practice, which I still do now, but I basically had in mind, it's like, okay, I know, like, before I even consider whether I want to stop, I want to get at least a 232. So even when my PB was, a 230, like a 236, 230, 236, 235, I was still thinking about, okay, when I was making my target splits, it's like, okay, to be able to get a 232, these splits need to go particularly well. And in the Maxi 1 split, I'm setting like a pretty high standard for like how well I want the split to go, because a lot of that split, for example, is execution based, right? So there's just like these kind of like planning stages that I put in place that basically allowed me to be like, okay, I need to perform and execute at a specific level, otherwise I'm probably not going to get a 232, and even if I do, I'm probably not going to be happy with it, right? So it basically allowed me to just kind of like more seamlessly. It's like, okay, to get from a 232 to a 231, I don't need to like learn how to do more optimized movement. I don't need to learn the best strats. Like I didn't need to like veer away from like safety strats, for example, right? It's just like, okay, I already kind of have these things in place. It's just like, okay, everything else just needs to go like a little bit better, and then I can go from like a 232 to a 230. And now at this point, it's like, obviously we're pushing that more once you get a 229, right? There's some small pocket things I did for high variance splits like Winona, but fundamentally, the route that you take from 231 to 229 is going to be the same. Execute at a higher level, and the tangent I'm going on is eventually going to come back to a point where it's like, again, it just depends on what your end goal is, right? So if you really want to be like, I basically want to be like Ash, or like I want to become a master at the game, or something like that, right? But point being is that early surge gives you less and less benefit the more you start to think about, I want to expand into the other categories, right? Once you get to like a certain, like once you like, it's not even about the route. It's like I can bike well without many mistakes. I can do a run to bike and execute it 99% of the time correctly, right? I can make decisions about how I want to carry my HP to Koga. I want to make decisions about what kind of early game risks do I want to take for Sammy, for example, so that I don't have to heal early and ensure that my Route 3 is not going to go like complete garbage, right? So those things will just fall into place, right? The more you're able to practice at the game. And one of the risks of jumping into early surge too soon is that because surge is such a hard wall, you end up like cutting away a lot of live reps of doing Rock Tunnel, the Koga split, Victory Road, for example. You lose a little bit of that like live run reps the more you start to lean into early surge, right? And again, if your goal is to just get a good glitchless PB, that might be fine, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like if you get a good time pass surge, you can probably just carry it to the end of the game. But if your goal is to like, I need a good skill set so that I can practice like post game, for example, post game movement in round 2 is going to be much more difficult. There are many more tricks that you have to learn in post game. And if you don't have the foundation, it's like, okay, I'm well practiced in biking and understanding the mechanics and the kind of the math behind how run to bikes are supposed to work. If you don't have that foundational understanding and like the reps to be able to apply that in real runs, then post game's going to be really tricky for you, especially I'm on like a really strong PB pace run, and now I messed up in one island. I hit an optional. Now I have to reset and start over. Right? I did that a lot, but the point being is that the more you kind of like think big picture about where you want to go in terms of speedrunning with the game, that will influence how you approach the time you're spending practicing now, basically. And as you said, if your goal is to take like kind of like the more categories route, I would say I kind of made the suggestion. You can do early surge once a week, right? Because for one, it's fun, right? Doing the early surge fight is great for like chat engagement, right? And I think that's important, and it's also a way for you to kind of get familiar with like the early surge route. Like, oh, I'm not selling Rock Tomb. I'm going into the Vermilion Mart. How's that menu going to work? I'm candying before. I'm picking up the candy early. Doing boat rival. I have to boat heal after. I'm going for double kick on Martha a little bit more often. I can kick what is his name? Connor's Venonat. They're just things like I'm going for the Arbok range instead of always going for bite waterfall. There's some small things that you get used to, and then eventually, once you're well practiced, your muscle memory gets flexible enough. Like for me, when I was doing dual runs, I was doing early surge for glitchless and late surge for round 2, and even though I was like a vast majority of attempts that I was doing that basically ever got past Brock was round 2. Eventually I had enough reps in where it's like, okay, I need to just flip my switch to do the early surge route. I'm not getting the T early. I'm taking because I'm doing glitchless and not round 2, I'm taking the right door to enter the mart instead of the left. Small things like that eventually, once you're well practiced enough in both, eventually, those kinds of things will eventually just come second nature. And for me, obviously, main, poke guy, gunner, took us years of reps to be able to kind of get to that level. And depending on how, and obviously you can learn from us and be able to shorten that time a lot, provided that you put your time and effort into the right things in a way that basically best helps you achieve the goals that you want.